Hey guys, today I'm here to wrap up everything that I read in both February and March, mainly because I totally forgot to do a wrap-up video for February. Starting off with my least favorite book, I want to give you a little bit of an update on my Back to University project, because the last time I talked to you guys about it, I was slogging my way through Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Now, I ultimately decided to DNF this because it had been almost 2.5 months and I was only about 320 pages into it, and I just never felt like picking it up, and I kind of was forcing myself to read it. So seeing as the whole point of this project was to just give books a second chance, I feel like I did that and decided to put it aside. The next book on my Back to University TBR is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Again, this is a reread. I picked this out of my TBR jar, and I will hopefully get to this in the next couple of weeks, but I've just been sucked into some short story collections recently and haven't gotten a chance to pick this one up yet. To get into some books that I actually finished reading, first let's start off with a 3-star read, which was Caretaker by Josie Russell. Now this is the first book in a sci-fi series that I was sent by the publisher, Future House Publishing, in exchange for an honest review, and you can see that full video here or wherever it is that those magic card things end up floating. The main action of Caretaker takes place on a transport ship full of human beings in stasis, or a kind of cryogenic state, as they travel to a distant planet which they are supposed to colonize. Of course, because the authorities behind these journeys realize that it's very irresponsible to have a ship full of unconscious people without anybody to actually troubleshoot if there are any issues in transit, they have one person who is supposed to stay awake throughout the journey and experience it kind of in real time, who is known as the Caretaker. And in Caretaker we follow the caretaker of this ship, sorry, that just got really confusing, named Ethan Bryant. Now, Ethan wasn't actually supposed to be the caretaker of this ship, but the original caretaker, the one who was assigned, died mysteriously right before Ethan could be put in stasis, and he was then assigned to take over the position by the ship's artificial intelligence. Now, of course, Ethan finds this very confusing and concerning, so when another passenger suddenly wakes up unexpectedly, way too early in the journey, they team up and try and find out what the heck is going on and why their original caretaker died. For my complete cohesive thoughts, I will refer you to my review video because it has been over a month since I read the book, but from what I remember, I was really intrigued by the concept. I thought it was really cool, and because I don't read a ton of sci-fi, it was like nothing I'd really read before. But I thought that the world building was very inconsistent. It was really good in the beginning, not so much in the end, when it probably should have been better. Like, it was more critical for there to be good world building in the end. And basically, I think that the writing ultimately just failed the concept and the plot. I thought that it was kind of basic and probably could have benefited from maybe a little bit more editing. The next book I have to share with you guys was also a 3-star read, and that is First to Die by James Patterson. This is the first book in his Women's Murder Club series, which follows mainly a detective inspector, Lindsay Boxer, who is a member of the San Francisco Police Department. As most mystery and crime books do, this starts off with a crime, namely the murder of a bride and groom just hours after their wedding reception. Because this bride and groom were not residents of San Francisco, but were technically tourists, the brass is basically concerned that this is going to reflect badly on the city, and in order to help keep a lid on things in regards to sensationalism and the media, they assign Detective Boxer a new partner who is, of course, a very dashing, handsome man named Chris Raleigh. The further Lindsay and Chris get into the mystery, the more frustrating it gets because they're not finding any leads, and then another bride and groom are murdered, and it becomes quickly apparent that they're dealing with a serial killer. Armed with this information, Lindsay decides that the police could probably use a little bit of outside help, and she turns to some of the kick-ass women she knows to form the Women's Murder Club. So this club consists of Detective Lindsay, her friend who is a chief medical examiner in the medical examiner's office, an assistant district attorney, and a crime reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. Because this is part of the Women's Murder Club series, I thought the Murder Club would play a little bit more into the plot and have a little bit of a more important role, but it didn't really. Actually, this book is more about Detective Lindsay and how she is handling a lot of personal drama in addition to this heinous series of crimes, and that I guess maybe wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I don't really mean this in a bad way at all, but this felt very much like a crime series marketed at middle-aged women, and by that I mean there's just a lot of personal drama going on. Detective Lindsay is dealing with the fact that she's divorced. She is like trying to decide whether she should put herself out there. She's having health problems, and it just wasn't really the kind of crime novel I'm more interested in. That's of course not to say that the stakes weren't high enough. I felt like the crime was actually pretty graphic in here and very thoroughly described. I particularly wasn't a fan of how Lindsay's health concerns were handled. They very much felt like a device that Patterson was using to make certain plot points happen. Which conveniently brings me to the writing. I know that James Patterson is a much beloved author. He is New York Times bestselling. He has like a bajillion and one books out, but I wasn't really impressed. I thought it was really basic, and although story-wise it's very complicated and he manages to kind of tie everything together really nicely in the end, I didn't think the writing was anything to like, I don't know, give a gold star necessarily. It was kind of basic. Post-filming, Marissa popping in here really quick to add a note on First to Die that I realized I forgot to mention, and that was that my favorite part of the book was actually having San Francisco as the setting. For those of you who don't know, I lived in San Francisco for almost 5 years when I was an undergraduate student, and it was really cool to read a mystery where I really actually knew each and every location that Patterson was talking about, and I really feel like he made San Francisco its own character in the book, and pretty much for that reason alone I will continue to read the series. Then moving up slightly in the world, we have a 3.5-star book, and that was The Revenant by Michael Punk. Now I also have a full video review on this, so I won't get too crazy about discussing it here, but this is obviously the book that inspired the Oscar-nominated film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Now this rating was again influenced by writing style, and I think that was mainly because I had kind of unfair expectations about what the book was going to be like based on how the film was shot. Because the movie is set so beautifully and it's very grand, very atmospheric, I was really hoping for some really beautiful literary descriptiveness, and this actually reads more dry, more like a history text, so that just kind of, I guess, was my bad expectations. I will say though, if you're into survival stories, you should check this out because Hugh Glass goes through a lot more, I think, in here than he does in the film, and if you are interested in the American frontier at all, definitely something worth checking out. And then I did have one 4-star read, and that was Japanese Homes and Lifestyles, An Illustrated Journey Through History by Kazuya Inaba and Shigenobu Nakayama. Now this I have been dipping in and out of since summer, and that's mainly because this is more of a reference book, I would say, unless something you would sit down and read like a novel or a more literary a nonfiction book. Initially I was really drawn to it by these fantastic illustrations that are very detailed and really show you what life was like in different Japanese homes and Japanese towns, and I just think that it really reminds me of some of the Richard Scarry books that I used to have when I was younger, where they would, you know, cut a building in half and you would see where people lived and where people worked, and I think that's what really appealed to me at first. But having read it now, I can say that the actual written text of this is incredibly fascinating, and I think it is basically a look at Japanese history and Japanese culture through the lens of their architecture and city planning. So I would really recommend this not only to fans of Japanese history and culture, but if you are an enthusiast of architecture or civil engineering or civil planning at all, definitely check this out. Then lastly, I did pick up a short story collection, and that is Unaccustomed Earth by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is her second short story collection, and seeing as I'm just about there, I will talk about this more in my April wrap-up. So these are the books that I read in February and March, as well as what I am currently reading, and I have to say I've been in kind of a weird reading mood. I'm in one of those read all the things moods right now where I'm just picking up random books. You can also probably see that I'm having kind of an average reading period right now where I'm reading a lot of 3-star reads, so I'm hoping in the coming months that I read some more 4 stars and hopefully even a 5-star or 2. If you would like to share with me maybe your favorite book of the month down below, I always appreciate that. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Bye!